of Games Done Legit Entertainment, and I'm really super psyched today because I got the rare privilege of meeting an author coming from the gaming world. You know, I'm coming from a place of I used to run events, I used to run Street Fighter tournaments, and now I run a video game entertainment company. Here's a guy, we got a shared love of Street Fighter, and he's taken all these cool principles and all these benefits of gaming. He's put them all together in a book in a way that I really haven't seen yet. I think he really puts into words a lot of things I think a lot of us gamers think and feel. And actually, I'm going to read you one of the passages from his book right now to get us started off, to give you an idea of how cool what we've got here. Okay, video games often get a bad rap for being a waste of time, contributing to antisocial behavior, and even inspiring terrible violence. Often overlooked is their potential as an unrivaled source of learning and an untapped mechanism for teaching life principles. In fact, I believe that many individuals who enjoy video games are routinely practicing mastering the game. 238 desirable traits that can lead to real-world success if they are correctly applied. The one trait that is most noticeable as it relates to success in all areas of life is the idea of persistence. So, John, why don't you introduce yourself, and let's talk about mastering the game.
Yeah, Chris, thank you. It's absolutely a pleasure. I appreciate your time and your kind words about this. Well, where to start? So, like many others my age, I'm somewhere in that mid-30 range. We grew up with some of the greatest games out there, having the chance to see the 8-bit and the 16-bit era. And we've now entered this age where we're supposed to be adults. Many of us have real jobs, and some of us have families as well. But our love for this hobby, our passion for video games, hasn't gone away. Now, maybe some of us have not played as much as we used to. I know I have a 4-year-old son, so my game time's reduced a bit from what it used to be. But we still have fond memories of this hobby we had growing up. And I realized that there's a lot we can learn, and already have learned, that we're maybe not even aware of from this pastime, from this hobby, and for many of us, a way of life. So that's what mastering the game is all about, looking at these principles that apply to video games as well as the business world, ways I've been successful in my own work, and I believe others, when you connect the dots, can become successful as well.
Cool, man. Yeah, great intro. And I really like you mentioned a lot of other books in your book that people can read to find success, find inspiration, find how to succeed. If they're like books that have inspired you. I was even kind of thinking, going through your book, it kind of reminded me this is like a strength finder for gamers. And you end up mentioning this book, right. Strength Finders, in your book. Strength Finders is really cool book that I think John and I would both recommend to all of you. If you really want to nail down like what you're good at, you have this book, and it gives you a little test to take. And well, you can explain it better than I can, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, sure. Free plug for Strengths Finders here. Strengths Finders 2.0 is the book that most people will want to pick up. It's about $13, so it is a bargain. If you went out there and tried to get a personality assessment or a strengths assessment for yourself, this is the business that I work in, so I'm familiar. A lot of them will run $100, maybe $200 or more to get this insight as to what are your areas of strength in the professional world. Well, this book, 13, maybe $20, goes through and looks at what areas are your strengths. And the analogy I use in my book, as you already mentioned the game Street Fighter 2, love the game. You think about this game, there are certain characters that have certain strengths, right? So you've got Zangief, this big, slow-moving bear wrestler, and E Honda, also, sumo wrestler. You've got these strong power types. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have these fast, jump in, land a few hits, like Chun-Li, Cammy, these quick characters. And you start realizing they have certain areas that they're strong in. And if you play a certain style, you can do really well. But if you play a style that doesn't use the strengths of these characters, you're going to lose very quickly. Well, the same is true in life. If we find out what our own strengths are and we leverage those, there's no limit to what we can accomplish. And in fact, it even goes as far as to say your weaknesses, overlook those. Delegate them, compensate for them. You want to focus on your strengths so much that no one can compete in your area of strength. And your weaknesses become irrelevant at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's something that I've seen in my work world. It's something I've seen in the game world as well. Again, that's the idea. It's a principle. So it works in one, it's going to work in the other.
Tell me again, John. What is your day job? What do you do?
So I'm currently manager of organizational development. So I do leadership training and development for directors, and I'll do coaching for executives of a hospital, but I also do other business lines. And so I help these individuals find their strengths. I help them learn ways to be more successful and do their job more efficiently. So whether it's one-on-one coaching, whether it's a classroom where I'll be speaking to 30 up to 200 individuals at a time, or even going into specific departments and working with people in a team and saying, okay, what are some of your challenges you're looking to overcome, and what are your areas for opportunity, and helping them be more effective at what they do. So you can see I have this passion for helping people be successful, and I can't tell you how honored I am to be able to be speaking about video games and helping other people be successful in life in the same breath. So that just blows my mind, but that's what this book is all about.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That this is your day job, because one of the things that really struck me early on in your book was that you were kind of mentioning, like, you like where you are in life, family and work, but you were thinking, what else can I offer the world, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what I thought was interesting about that, a lot of people just think, oh, how can I be more successful, or, how can I do something else that just makes me happy? But I thought that was a really interesting point, that your focus wasn't just like on yourself, like finding more success, more professional success for yourself, but you have that mindset, and this is how I thought the people that have mentored me, and we'll get to mentoring later because it's a huge part of your book. The people that mentored me have that attitude to find success. It's not really just about you, but about how you can fit into the big picture, and, like you said, using your unique strengths. And I think this book can really help a lot of people do that, and being able to put it in the context of video games, I think, is genius. You can reach a whole new segment of the population. People probably really maybe need this guidance, and now we can kind of. I just love the way you framed everything, in the context of games, all the quotes and everything.
Well, thanks. One of the criterias I had when I was writing this, or even deciding should I write this, is it had to be something that I would want to read myself. And so I thought back, where was I 10 years ago? Where was I 5 years ago before I really started down the path that I'm on? And I realized there were a lot of things I wasn't getting from a mentor. And like you said, we can get to that a bit more. But I wasn't finding that mentor. I wasn't getting that path laid out for me. I wasn't having the direction I had hoped I had. And so it was kind of hard to jump into this blindsided. Like anything, when you step into a new world, you have to learn the vocabulary. You have to learn who are the go-to people, who are the experts, and who are the shams. Because every industry, every business, every world out there has your experts and your fakes. And going into it, you don't know which is which. So I've tried to put together something that is, in some ways you could say it's a starter guide, because I cover a lot of different topics in the business world. But at the same time, I think there's something in here wherever you are in your professional life, whether you're a student looking to land a job or whether you're 20, 30 years into your career. I've done my best to try to add value for the things I wish I would have known professionally when I got started.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, and that's exactly the picture that I got. And before I forget, one of the main things I wanted to cover. So we talked a little bit about on Twitter before about Metal Gear. You can tell by my background. I feel about Metal Gear, even the old 8-bit ones, for MSX, starting from all the solids. I mean, they have had a huge impact on my life and how I feel about things, what I think about what is real, what is not real, all that stuff in Solid 2. It's had a huge impact on me, and I read The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins because of the selfish gene theory getting mentioned by Liquid Snake and Metal Gear Solid. And dude, you went all Richard Dawkins on us in this is your first book, is it?
Yeah.
Dude, so you're like, I'm gonna invent my own word. Richard Dawkins
Yeah.
word me in this book, The Selfish Gene, and you're just like, Allegheny, baby, this is the hook, this is it.
Yeah.
So tell me, explain Allegheny, and then I've got the definition here. If you need the exact wording, I'm sure you know. But
yeah, I'm gonna do a little riff on that a bit. But yeah, so Allegheny is essentially a hybrid between allegory and video games. But it's not as linear as that because it's my word. I get to play around with the definition a bit, and that's the beauty of it. So it's a way to use video games to teach principles. Now, typically, I think of Aesop's Fables. That's something I grew up reading. If you've been in public school in the U.S., you've probably come across it or heard of Aesop's Fables. And the idea is there's a story that can teach some sort of important, valuable lesson. And a lot of them were usually moral or ethical lessons, teaching you principles that would help you be successful. So I said, you know what, I think I can do this with video games. It's a crazy idea, but so I fused the two together, and Allegheny is that approach, where I use video games as an allegory, but I started noticing a trend, that I wasn't the only one who's done something like this. There were many great examples that I was able to dissect, and no one's used the word yet, because, again, I made it up, but I look at some examples, and Journey was an easy one to pick on. The video game Journey that came out for the PlayStation 3, and I believe it's on the PlayStation 4. It's in the process of being ported to it now. And really identified that this was the allegory for, well, some very, very familiar framework that most of us have read before. Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey. And you realize this game has this parallel where, as you go through the game, you're encountering elements that exist in many other famous stories. And so I kind of dissected that a bit. But I also found it in a band that I was introduced to via the Overclock Remix site. And these are a group of guys from Australia called 7-Bit Hero. And these are an interesting group of guys, cool group, that play essentially chiptune music that also includes a live show where everyone in the audience participates on an app to play a game that synchronizes with the song. And they had a music video that was a tribute to Bubble Bobble. And as you're listening to it, the lyrics sound very pedestrian. It's a tribute to the game. It's talking about the in-game items. Saying I'm a bubble dragon, I'm cursed, I blow bubbles. I'm rescuing my girlfriend. But when you watch the video that they've produced, it's an amazing work of art where there's this parallel story that I don't want to spoil it because if you're if you're watching this, you need to go see this. It's called Bubble Dragon by 7-Bit Hero. But it follows the story of a young boy and his father and a life-changing experience they've gone through, and looks as these different items within the Bubble Bobble game actually have significance to this parallel story that is incredibly moving. It's incredibly emotional. I gotta confess, I cried a bit at the end. First time I watched it, it hit me hard. I won't say any more. I don't want to give it away because it's worth experiencing. But that was just another example of, so what is this Allegheny idea all about? It's something deeper. It's finding meaning where we know there's meaning, but we don't always know how to describe it. And I think video games are another source that I believe is art, that we can find this meaning and translate it out to our own experiences wherever we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. It made me think when you proposed that term, another Metal Gear callback, Metal Gear Solid 2, which a lot of people at the time, it's a game that people played and are just like, oh, this sucks because it's so much like the first one, but all this weird stuff happens.
Yeah.
I didn't learn until way later, and the Snake Soup, is a Metal Gear fan site, put together a video just, I think, last year or the year before called, what's it called? It's called Metal Gear Solid 2. Oh, shoot. I can't remember the name of it. Look up Snake Soup, Metal Gear Solid 2. It's like an anniversary video. Anyway, the point is that it's examining a philosopher's take on what is seen and what is unseen. And he goes into all the details of this game where it's like, why did he make the game like this? And it has a deeper meaning. I think the meaning that he was trying to tell was clumsily told, and that's why it goes over a lot of people's heads. But once I re-examined the game, it was the first game that I ever said, wow, like there's postmodernism going on here, and it's trying to tell me something, but not overtly. It's trying to communicate these themes and these things that I can take away from the game without hitting you over the head with like a typical story. And that's really the first time that I had a game kind of maybe scratch the surface of what you've done in this book with gaming and this idea.
I think it's an incredibly powerful concept, and I've laid that out a bit in contrast to the term we all are familiar with, and some of us cringe a bit at, is gamification and educational gaming. Two separate concepts that I believe have incredible intentions and amazing potential, but have become hijacked and diluted a bit into something that's a shadow of what it could be. So when we think about gamification, rather than looking for ways to bring engagement to the workplace, we look for ways to, I don't know, put badges or a point system in a place that it doesn't belong. And so that's missing the point, and we can revisit and resurrect that. Then we look at the other ideas out there, and we wonder, why doesn't educational gaming have the depth that it could? Why isn't there a digital version of a classic literature work, a novel, where it truly is exploring and adding depth, and the learning happens, like you described, in a stealth way? You learn as part of the mechanics, not as this beat you over the head, okay, now we're going to memorize vocabulary, or now you're going to do a series of math problems to get to the fun part of the game. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of that, and I think we're getting there, especially in the indie scene. I think there's a lot out there that is just beginning to untap this. So I'm very excited for the potential that I really see starting to surface today.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, I agree. I did want to go over, so the definition that you had of valid gaming in the book, the interpretation of a video game to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a personal development or moral one, correct?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, and that's, I think it's awesome. It's distinct, it's succinct, and I really respect people like you who are, like, video games are just more than, like, Activision. You know, like, video games aren't important because they make a lot of money. They're important because we all have these personal connections to these games, so much so that we're still playing Super Mario Brothers games, that this formula hasn't really changed that much in, 30 years, but we still love it, and we're still enjoying it. Now we're passing it on to our children, as I'm sure you are. What do you, as a tangent, what do you have your son, what's going on with him in the world of gaming?
Yeah, so this was a tough call. A good friend of mine named Ryan got me into retro game collecting a few years back when it was still somewhat accessible.
Yeah.
And so, what's that?
Dangerous hobby now.
Jeez, yeah. But I got in while the getting was still a bit good. It wasn't totally a zoo just yet. So I've been able to pick up pretty much all the mainstream consoles and a few offshoots. So I have the hardware, and I want to really raise my son with a chance to experience some of the classics before I throw him into next-gen, current-gen systems. So with him, we've played Pac-Man, we've played Battlezone, we've played, I did skip a bit, he's played Mega Man, and he has played Sonic, which disturbs me because at the time, he was 3.5, and he was able to finish the Green Hill Zone stage in Sonic with 1 life, and I don't think I did that till I might have been 12. So to see him do this at 3.5, I was like, okay, you're done. We're putting that away. You can't put me to shame this early. So yeah, I think there's value in kind of learning the history, and I think there's a value that for me on experiencing it on the original hardware as it was meant to be. Now, I don't look down on anyone who does it otherwise. There are some games that deserve to be played, and due to their cost, obtaining the original cartridge or whatever medium it was on is very cost prohibitive. So that's the beauty of modern digital download. You can purchase these collections and enjoy some of those classic games on the current hardware. And if you'll notice the way I'm speaking, it is relatively distinctly console-based. I don't have anything against PCs, but I love the technology and the feel of the console era, which is where I spend a lot of my time growing up.
Okay. Yeah. So I've got a couple specific questions. I hope I can get to them by the end, but I did want to mainly try to get the broader sense of basically the benefits, of picking your book up and how you would like people to have these takeaways. Some of the things that really stood out for me, I really liked how you had some advice, for entrepreneurship. There's a lot of business in here, which I think is great because I haven't seen gaming frame like this. One of I think the most important areas that you cover is the idea of fear and how fear in general keeps us from trying new things. Basically, that's one of the main things that stops us from being successful, not just at games, but at our lives, and how video games can help free us of that fear in game and how that can translate to our actual lives. So I'd love to expand upon that a little bit. Your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Living in the United States or any developed world, anywhere that can watch a video like this or participate in something of this magnitude, we have a distinct advantage at this point in history that's never existed. The excuses that used to be around to keep us from pursuing our goals, from doing something, work that matters, leaving our mark on the world, those excuses are gone. And human nature being what it is, we invent excuses. Because when I have access to a computer, when I have access to video equipment, when I have access to a microphone and high-speed internet, and the ability to now communicate out to the world in a very public way through social media, through a blog, through a YouTube channel, I now have the stage. It's, Seth Godin, who's an amazing author. He wrote his recent book called What to Do When It's Your Turn, and the subtitle is It's Always Your Turn. And that's the reality of the world we live in. It's our turn. No one's going to come to you now and say, okay, when are you going to write your book? When are you going to start your channel? When are you going to create that game that'll change the world? Well, it's our turn. It's our turn to take it. And so fear speaks really loudly. Fear gets up in our face and tells us, well, what if you fail? What if people laugh? What if you do something, you invest this time, this energy, this blood, sweat, and tears, and it doesn't work? Who's going to listen to you anyways? Who are you? Who do you think you are? These sort of voices we hear, and they sound a lot like our own voice, right? We hear them in our head, and maybe they sound like a well-intended parent or a friend who says, we don't want you to fail. Just play it safe, stick with your day job, do what you know to do, and keep that hobby on the side. But, really, what do you think you're going to do with this? Well, that's fear speaking. And fear tends to get really loud when we're about to do something especially important. And that can be an indicator sometimes. Not that every fearful thing is important, but the vast majority of important things do include large amount of fear. And guess what? It might not work. And you have to be okay with that. Because I had looked for reassurance for a long time to do the sort of thing I'm doing now. I had waited for someone to give me the thumbs up and say, yes, it's good enough. And no one was doing that. And I would have been waiting a real long time. Sure, I've tried a lot of things that haven't worked. That's not a good enough reason anymore, because we learn from those. Every failure we make is an opportunity to learn. And so I think back to when I first started playing Half-Life, and that was on the PC, so I'll appease my PC fans out there. I started playing through Half-Life, and it had a very aggressive autosave feature. And I was obsessive compulsive anyways. I'm always mashing the save button. I'm one of those guys that has like 8 different save files And I'll even like give descriptions, like just in case I need to go back and redo this. So as you're playing through the game, you're failing. You're dying a lot. Even when you're good, you're running into stuff you didn't expect. And so you take that as a learning experience. You take that as a lesson to say, okay, so I tried that. It didn't work. What else can I try? How can I do it different? Or how do I slow down? And, you know, even I think the video game inspired movie that just recently had come out, I think it's on video now. I believe it's The Day After Tomorrow. It's one with Tom Cruise in it. That movie is essentially like watching a video game being played. This idea of trying the same thing out over and over, and without spoiling too much, Tom Cruise gets to die a few hundred times in the movie before he learns how to solve the challenges he's facing. Well, we obviously don't want to try things in our business world that'll cause us to die. That would be bad. You don't get a full do-over. But the concept is still valuable. And so when you look at video games, they help us overcome fear because we can try stuff out. So when I look at my own life, when I look at my own world, what are things I can try? And what are ways I can learn lessons? Rather than seeing this loss as an ultimate failure, what can I get out of it and try again to be successful? So that's kind of the direction I was going with fear and how you overcome it and how you tackle it. And obviously I use a few games as an example there, going back even to Galaga is an example of fighting fear, and not just fighting fear, but, you know, its author John Acuff says being awesome. You have to confront fear to do that.
Yeah, I was really excited to see that section because as a young guy, like that's my story, what led me here, not just with my company, but like with the tournament, you know, that I ran that brought me here was when I was little, I was like the short kid, I was like the super nerdy kid, I was the only child, so I wasn't good with like, you know, just being joked around with and teased outside of like my family. So I would just like clam up at school. I just didn't want to get made fun of. I didn't want to make noise. Just want to like get good grades, and you know, that's it. But like in the video game world, my mom would take me to arcades, and you know, I played everything, and then I got into Street Fighter, and in that video game world, like people treated me like I was a normal person, even though these are people that I never would have met or had contact with. They're from like the parts of Cleveland that I am not from, you know. Not there's anything. We're just different, you know. There's people I never would have met, and we'd be playing like Mortal Kombat, and like these, you know, tall kids like from the hood would be coming up to me, my grandparents, and they'd be asking me about Killer Instinct combos and stuff like that. And that's what I started to realize, and I think it's what you maybe have experienced too when you talk about like the social power and the unifying force that video games have been for our generation. I mean, I just feel like there's nothing really like it.
Right.
And a constant stream of like fighting game play helped me kind of like overcome those fears and helped me almost have like a trial and error mentality of being less afraid to like take chances and to kind of just like be myself and like have more confidence in myself.
You know, that's a really great point, Chris. And I thank you for sharing that story because it's always encouraging to hear about others' journeys. And we say, oh wait, you know what? I can relate to that. I went through something very similar. And the thing about video games, especially the multiplayer, and I love the old school, let's get in the same room or stand in front of the same machine. Nothing against online play. There's just something visceral about that face-to-face play. It creates a measure of safety. Even though in the game we're trying to kill each other, there's a degree of safety where I wouldn't just walk up to you on the street and say, hey, how's it going? You want to hang out? That'd be weird, you know. Yeah. But we're together at this game cabinet. We're playing this game. We're focused on something here. And now the walls start to break down. And like you described, background, ethnicity, place in society, all that melts away when you're playing a head-to-head multiplayer game. And so that's a uniting factor. And it's that shared experience that's, I think, again, as you pointed out, provides great opportunity for us just as people to grow in ways that other hobbies traditionally haven't allowed. So think about the range of people you know who've enjoyed video games. You narrow it down. You think about the tournaments of some of the top-tier fighting games. You look across a sea of people from every country, from every walk of life, from different backgrounds. You know, there's a uniting factor there that you don't see in very many other contexts. So that's powerful, and that's important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, those are my experiences too. Exactly, especially with the fighting game community. I just found it just amazingly diverse, and yeah, just people from all walks of life, and that was really the first inkling of like, wow, like video games are just I don't have a better way to describe it than just like the unifying factor, the unifying properties that they have. And I've met lifelong friends, and the event that we ran was called Seasons Meetings that I did for 7 years. And just like you said, we by the end we had 10 or 12 countries represented for our annual event, and it's just, I mean, it just like floored me, and it was like, wow, like this isn't just like some hobby anymore. Like we're doing this for real, and the privilege of delivering like an experience that people felt worth sharing their lives with me for that weekend. I it just put gaming in like a whole other context for me, and I'm guessing like writing a book like this, you want this to be your contribution. Like you love gaming, it's done so much for you, and it's like how can I inspire, how can I entertain and inspire and enrich other people's lives through this shared hobby that we have. And I think you succeeded in the book.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean that's definitely where I'm going with it. I'm not a game programmer. I admit in the book that I'm not knowledgeable enough of the games themselves in all categories to be a super expert on it. I mean, I'm definitely not a casual player. I love Nintendo. I love Sega. That's where I grew up. I still continue to again, I have almost every system, but when it gets into the nuts and bolts, like I would drive the fighting game fanatics crazy. When they start talking about some of the specific lingo, I get a little lost. Now, I don't button mash, but I'm definitely not top tier. So it's interesting that there's all levels of that. So this is my way of saying, well, what do I know? And let me tell you what I know. I have this experience in the business world, and I love being able to help people connect the dots. And what a great way to serve this community than to say, hey, guys, I want to help you with the experiences that I have had and that many other business leaders have had, and I'm going to make this accessible in a way that makes sense but also fun. Because if you're not having fun while you're learning, it's tough to retain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, along those lines, I think that's a good place to move into. Well, let's talk about some specifics about like what does your book offer. You've come up with some really clever analogies. Like for instance, tell me in your words how the CQC, close quarters combat of Metal Gear, can help me with customer service.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I've been on the front end of the customer service line myself. I think we've we've all had experiences with customers. If you've worked a day job, you know that's just part of the reality of it. And I worked as a waiter for about, gosh, it's probably like 5 years, and it was brutal. If you've worked as a waiter, you know how tough it can be, and you know that people get really frustrated, they get upset, they get disappointed. So a lot of customer service is spent doing service recovery, and so I started thinking about that experience and the idea of Metal Gear and CQC, the close quarter combat that Snake uses to interact with his opponents. And I said, what are the parallels there? Now, obviously, we've all had a customer service experience where we wish you could put the other person in a sleeper hold. I'll confess. You know, this is on video, this is recorded. I won't tell you who, but there have been some people you just think, man, I wish I could just give this person a knockout dart and make them go away because they're not making my life easy. But that's not where I'm going with this. I'm not advocating the use of sleeping darts or brutal force against anyone. But I started looking at CQC as a practice. And it has a lot in common with judo. It has a lot in common with the soft skills out there about redirecting energy. And there's a very successful approach for customer service that involves redirecting situations when they go awry. And I found that when you go head to head with someone, if someone's coming to you and they're complaining, when I was a waiter, if they complained that the meal's wrong, the soup was cold, they wanted an in cut, this was center cut, whatever it was. If I tried to argue with them, no, ma'am, you really did order this soup, and you're saying it's too hot. You told me to heat it till it was boiling. You argue like that, you don't win. No one wins, because ultimately it's not about right or wrong. So you have to say, how do I survive? How do I survive this interaction? And so the model I share looks at that survival, but it also looks at redirecting the situation in a way that you can walk away successful and you don't necessarily have to destroy the other person in the process. So I use the acronym LEAPS, which is LEAPS, and that actually I have to credit the book Verbal Judo for that. George Thompson was the author. He was a police officer, and he actually developed this through hostage negotiations. So I figure if a police officer can use it on people who are about to kill other people or maybe themselves, and it works, then I can probably use it in a restaurant with an angry customer, or with perhaps even, the significant other. When things go a little sour. So if you want, I'll just walk you through this acronym real quick and kind of this parallel here. The acronym, again, was LEAPS, and it starts out with listening to the other person and being really focused, being really intentional. And, of course, I pepper all these different analogies throughout it, talking about that codec that Snake always has, that always seem to come up at the wrong moments. You're in the middle of this boss battle, and your codec starts ringing. You're like, okay, I'm going to duck behind a crate and check it. What is it? Oh, Otacon. Yeah, you're lonely. I get it. But there's usually useful information. But you got to stay focused is the point. So you listen. You have to look like you're listening. The E part of the LEAPS was empathizing. And it's not about really saying, yeah, you're right. It's about saying, I understand where you're coming from. Listen, I'd be mad too. And of course, I had to get very specific. The nerd side comes out. I think about the what was that group of the women called in Metal Gear Solid 4? There's the villains you fought. No, not really villains. Beauty and the Beast Corps. Yeah, there were the children who basically were like prisoners. They're war prisoners, and so they had these horrible experiences that brought them into this militia and brought them into where they were today. And so while I don't, Snake doesn't condone what they're doing and how they're going about it, but when you hear about these tragic lives they have, you can look at it and say, you know what, I can have empathy. That's got to be a pretty horrible experience to go through, and I can get why you went the way you went with it. But I'm not agreeing with you. The next part of it, it's A is ask. And so when you're listening to people, you're empathizing with them, you want to ask, and you want to ask them questions about trying to understand what the problem is, and part of those include understanding what would you like me to do. A lot of times we fail to do that. When we're in customer service, we try to solve what we think the problem is, but we don't ask. And so I include some phrases that are important, to let the other person know, what is it you would like to see me do? I'd like to think we can solve this problem. I'd like to think we can work through this together. And it's a bit of a weak connection, but immediately my mind went to Snake's ability to interrogate the soldiers that you've captured for bonus items or for ammo. That one's stretching it a bit. I never said that the analogies are airtight, but I had to go there. So the listen, the empathize, asking brings us to paraphrasing, which is so important, where now I'm going to tell you what I heard, and this is a chance to make sure we get it right. You see airline pilots do this all the time. They confirm information. I see it in healthcare. You see it with Snake, and it's funny. You almost find it laughable.
I do this all the time, and it's because of Metal Gear, because it's work. It helps you remember stuff, and it verifies to the other person that, yes, so this is what you're telling me, because it's happened so much in the special events world for me.
Yeah.
Not everyone's a different communicator, so sometimes they tell you something, but it's too general, so my mind interprets it as, is this what you want? And so I try to ask the most specific question as I can, to clarify what they need, because if something goes awry, stuff's going down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I endorse the solid snake technique of paraphrasing.
Well, and it's funny when you're playing the game. I know I was rolling my eyes a bit. I think I'm trying to think I don't remember which one of the Metal Gears I did this the most in, but there's these points where you feel like your hand's being held. And so you're going over this codec and you're repeating back phrases verbatim. And it's like, yes, I get it. I know. I have to escort this person to the other side. I get it, But to your point, that creates mutual understanding. And that's a chance to say, well, wait, no, I wasn't saying that. What I'm saying is this instead. So when you think about those codec conversations, there's that back and forth, that confirmation. And the last part of the LEAPS acronym is actually S. It's summarizing. And summarizing is a way to tie it all together. So I've listened to you. I've empathized with your situation. I've acknowledged and I've asked you what you want to see done. I've then paraphrased what I understood to make sure we're on the same page. And now here's the great point. This is the judo flip, where you're flipping them over on their back and knocking them out, and they get those little stars over their head. This is right before you throw them in the locker or wherever you decide to put the body. This is the summary, and this is where you say, okay, I've listened to you. I've heard you. I've asked what you want. We're on the same page. Now I'm going to ask you to do something. And you can say, I need you to wait patiently while I solve this problem. I need you to stop shouting at me so I can fix this for you. It's a way to kind of tie the loose end together, and really gives a great tool for all of us who have to face any customers at any point. And I think that just that Metal Gear framework really helps me keep it in mind. The only catch here is you have to remember you can't talk in the snake voice with the customer while you're doing this. I'll get your soup right, I'm no David Hayter, so I'll leave that to him.
Yeah, dude. I was really impressed at the amount of work and the amount of thought that you put into the different ways that games can inspire us and help us problem solve life situations like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no matter what you do, communication skills and soft skills are more important than ever in the job environment. But especially communication. I mean, if you can just learn, to empathize, especially with someone else's point of view, it opens a lot of doors for you. I'm a big believer of in life, just in general. I thought that was a really great little leaps. I love that. It's awesome, man.
Thanks.
Yeah. Let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, fear. Oh, I wanted to give a shout out. Are you familiar with Cross Counter? You know who Gutex is?
No. Please tell me so that I can answer that yes next time.
Ryan Gutierrez, he's a guy from the fighting game community. He was the first person to quit his day job and say, hey, I really love Street Fighter so much, I'm going to try to make a living making cool stuff, for the video game community, for fighting game community specifically. And he and I share a lot of similar ideas about where gaming can go, and kind of stepping up how we think of tournaments and how a lot of stuff. We're on the same page. A lot of things. He gave me a book about overcoming fear called The 50th Law, which is an author wrote a book in partnership with 50 Cent, who's not into rap. I like Queen and Meatloaf, but it's a book about getting yourself in the mentality of not letting other people get you down, not letting other people's expectations stop you from where you might be able to go with yourself. Yeah. And it just made me think of some of your chapter in there. Oh, I wanted to go over your 3 questions that you had here in the fear section.
Okay, sure.
To just your first question that stops people from achieving or moving forward. Mm-hmm. Who are you to do that? Mm-hmm. Number 2, you're too late to do this. And number 3, it has to be perfect. I really, really thought that was cool that you summed up with those 3 statements the main reasons why people just keep themselves where they are. They're too afraid to try new things.
Yeah, John Acuff wrote this book called Start, and as probably the world's coolest subtitle, and it is punch fear in the face, escape average, and do work that matters. And that one really lit a fire on me when I read that a couple years back. And he addresses this idea of taking fear head on, because those voices, those three questions you asked, or those little messages that we get, they eat away at all of us at some point. You know, there's that self-doubt, and I'm going to give a shout out to my friend here, Jared Easley. He has a podcast called Starve the Doubts, and he interviews successful individuals. I'm sorry?
What was that?
Starve the Doubts.
Okay.
By Jared Easley. And it's a podcast, and he's had a chance to interview successful people from all walks of life, and the one thing they all have in common is they all still encounter, at all levels, fear. And fear doesn't really go away. It can be ignored. It can be used as fuel, but even the best out there experience fear in one way, shape, or form. And so it's important to figure out, what do I do about it? The question that we get down to is, so what? Who are you to do that? Well, so what? What does it matter? I'm going to do it. You know, if you're too late, well, so what? Again, it's that chance to do something that matters. And who's to say that this isn't the time that's going to resonate with other people? You know, if you're too late with something that people took to heart, once the car was invented, everyone else would have just thrown up their hands and say, okay, I'm out. No one else make a car. One guy did it. Who can beat him? And the idea it has to be perfect, I think, is the one that has always hit me the hardest. Because I am a recovering, not quite recovered perfectionist. It gets really hard to pull the trigger on things. You work on stuff, and you want it to turn out right, and you hope there's no typos in a book. You hope that blog post doesn't have something incorrect in it, or that the hyperlinks work. You hope that that song is the right way with the right tune, or that that video is the right lighting behind it. Whatever it is you're doing, this idea that it has to be perfect is dangerous, because perfect is the enemy of great. And we have to remember that if we're waiting for something to be perfect, chances are we're going to miss that opportunity, because it'll most likely come and go when you're asleep. And there really is no such thing as perfect. The second you get something perfect, it's probably going to become irrelevant because you took too long.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought.
So.
Yeah, I love that. 3 simple ways, because I think just so many of us struggle with throughout our lives, is like, oh, is this the right time, or are people going to laugh at me or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And one of my mentors gave me one of the best, just like little fortune cookie Yoda style statements ever relating to that. They say it's a Rock the House Entertainment, a big production company here in Cleveland, that done is better than perfect. So yeah, you could have phrased that better, or you could have touched that up a little bit better in Photoshop. But if you're always stopping yourself from finishing a project, it's like you just can't get anything done. And that helped me, and I would hope that would help a lot of other people kind of get out of that mentality, because we all have that when we care about our work. You want it to be perfect.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, to your point, there comes a point you have to just ship it. You have to get it out there and figure out what is good enough. What does good enough mean? Because that's going to mean different things to different people. So, good enough to a heart surgeon is going to be different than good enough to a painter or a blogger, where, you can course correct. You go back, you edit it, you fix it. Well, if you're doing heart surgery, it's a little different. I don't want the surgeon who says, that's good enough, the heart's inside the chest, so we're good here. So you got to know what it means for your industry, or what it means for what you're doing. But you also have to be able to say at some point, to your earlier well-said point there, you got to get it out there. If I don't have my book released because I'm trying to perfect it, no one can buy it. But more importantly, no one's life can be changed or made better as a result of it. People will not have an opportunity to enjoy a fun event if you're worried about making the event so perfect or that event flyer so great that you miss the chance for them to even attend. So it's a difficult balance, but it's an important one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you mentioned like flyers. It's like I'm not a designer. I just had to teach myself Photoshop, and it's just like, man, I gotta get stuff out there. This is good enough.
Yeah.
No,
So if you're having trouble with Photoshop, if anyone's listening, get Canva. It's a free website, canva.com. That's the designer's best friend now. If you're not a designer and you don't know Photoshop, don't bother learning. Go check out canva.com. It's a lifesaver for anyone who wants to do that. Now I love Photoshop. I've been in it since version 7, so it doesn't make sense for me. But this is a quick and easy flyer creation tool that I think is going to be a game changer for a lot of people.
Oh, nice, good stuff. Okay, awesome.
Free bonus, nothing to do with games or my book.
And yeah, I mean, I do feel like we're covering a lot of stuff that isn't directly game related, but I think that's the whole point of your book. You use so many. There's a ton of really fun quotes in here. I mean, the whole book is just like peppered through game quotes, and I could exactly relate because that's how I think of, like every day I'm thinking like something happens and it reminds me of like a video game quote.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend is like, it's like I'm speaking gibberish sometimes because she doesn't know video games, but I do it anyway for my own amusement.
But do you have a few you'd like to share that are particularly profound for you?
Oh God, we'll be here all day.
Okay, give me your top 3.
Top 3. I mean, they'd all probably be probably if I had to pick off the top of my head, Metal Gear quotes. I mean, all got there's all like the fun, the silly stuff from games, but probably my all-time favorite is like the end of Metal Gear Solid 1. An idea that partly because of Metal Gear I take really close to my heart. You mustn't allow yourself to be chained to fate, to be ruled by your genes. Humans can choose the kind of life they want to live. So, all the stuff doesn't matter. It's just important that you choose life and live. It's probably my favorite. Because I never wanted to start. Like I started this company. I never wanted to like be in like the spotlight or take that kind of chance or be like an entrepreneur. Or I was the sidekick for 5 years with our event Seasons Beatings, and I just did like the AV, and my good friend was the one with all the contacts and who like really put it together and got it, and helped come up with the events at the beginning, make it happen. And I learned more through that process. And then when he retired after the 5th year, I was able to take it over and then kind of bring in someone else as my second because of what he was able to teach me. But I just never, I didn't think this was like in my genes to take an idea of like entertaining people through games, what I love to do through these tournaments and everything. I didn't think it'd be ever in my genes. But like you were saying, I realized that I was always looking for a partner. It was just never going to happen unless I just did it. So it's like, whatever. If I fail, it's whatever. I'll find something else to do. But So yeah, that'd be what would your favorite quote be?
Boy, that's a tough one. A favorite quote. I want to go wacky and silly with this because there's so many great quotes from the Katamari series, from the King of All Cosmos. That guy is off the wall. He is on like at least 5 different things at the same time. He's just nuts. And that game, I don't think I've ever laughed as hard playing a game as I have with that. But in terms of favorite quotes, I can't say that I was thrilled about the game, and I even make that disclaimer in the in my book. But I do use the quote, and it's from Final Fantasy 13, and it's a quote from Lightning about there are some things in life we just do. This is not a matter of can or cannot. There are some things in life that you just do. And I thought that was important when you mash it up against this idea of fear, that if we sit around and we start thinking, can I do that? Should I do that? Who's going to see it? Is it going to laugh? What's it going to matter? No. At some point, you just have to take action. You have to take action and do it. And it doesn't really matter in the long run, like you described, if it fails. As long as you learn from it, you pick up and you move on. So I think that's one that recently has stood out for me. The other long-standing one I love is "A Winner Is You" from pro wrestling.
Bought that the other day, actually.
Ah, excellent, a classic. That's my greeting on the 3DS. So every time I meet people, they get reminded that a winner is you. Because you know what? Let's be honest for a second. Let's go a little deeper with that. We don't hear that enough. There are many of us who bust our butts. We work hard jobs. We make difficult choices, and we don't always get that recognition that we deserve. We don't always have that person come up to us and say, you know what, you know, you're awesome. I appreciate what you're doing. Not everyone notices, but I do. And so in many ways, that's what I think gaming has allowed us to do and connect with others is get that recognition from our peers. You know, the follow-up message to an online match in Street Fighter 4 saying "good game," and you just hope that there's not profanity in it because he was mad that you spammed him with fireballs. But no, you get that respect and that sense of, you know, hey, that was awesome, good job, how'd you do that? So I think that recognition is an important point that's often lacking in our lives. And I wish more of us would hear that more often, that you matter and what you do is important.
Deep, dude. I didn't expect that from pro. I didn't expect that summary from a pro wrestling quote, but I mean, it makes total sense. I think that pretty much. I mean, yeah, that like the way you think about games and the way you think about a quote like that, and relating that to the deeper issues of like why we game. I mean,
Right.
this all makes sense about like how you were able to like put such a cool book together and come up with these creative analogies and relate it all to like this hobby, and especially like even going back to the NES games and the 8-bit pixely stuff, the mistranslated English.
Yeah.
To get something like profound out of that is really impressive to me. Along those lines, so we talked about some quotes that inspire us from games. As we kind of like finish up here, I guess I'd like to know what you think the most popular, not popular, the most beneficial games. Like you've got a section on Tetris, of course, the benefits it can have for your brain. What are some of the other most, I guess, beneficial games to like social or mental development that you found?
You know, that's interesting, an interesting approach, and it's hard to quantify it because, um, like like many things, better or best or beneficial is hard to define. So you mentioned Tetris. Tetris has some amazing scientific, well-researched benefits. Individuals playing this game for about 20 minutes a day can actually have boost in their gray matter, which allow them to concentrate, to be more effective, to have increased memory retention. So you have benefits like that. You have games like Brain Age that use Sudoku and other classic games to really build memory and retention. So there's value in that. But then you also have games like Journey that I mentioned earlier, that on the surface you look at it and you don't necessarily see a takeaway. But the first time I played through Journey, I played through start to finish with myself in a chair in a dark room and the volume cranked up. And I have to tell you, this was the first game I would qualify as being a spiritual experience. It touched me in a way that a game had never connected with me before. It brought out emotions. And so when you talk about beneficial, I think that there's great opportunities in different ways, not just what's there on the surface. And I think that all of us can subjectively say that there's a game that's benefited us, whether it was going back to Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, or I had a chance to talk with, I did an interview with Scott Patterson, who is a gaming historian, and he told me about instances where he was able to avoid a car accident, and he directly attributes that to his love for video games and that reaction and that response time and the peripheral vision. So while it's easy to go that direction and say, yeah, hand-eye coordination, there's truth to it. So in the book, Everything Bad is Good for You. Steven Johnson talks about how game players engage in two distinct skills that are essential, from my experience, for top-level executives. And those are the ideas of telescoping and probing. Telescoping, it's not multitasking. It's this ability to zoom out, see the big picture, focus in on details, solve problems, collect items, beat a dungeon, but then step back out and say, what's the bigger picture? How do I stay, in touch with everything else going on? And probing is essentially the scientific method. That's going out there and saying, I'm going to try this spell and see the effect it has on this particular enemy. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to regroup and say, okay, what's my thought now? Okay, maybe it'll be this spell or this element, or maybe I need to do physical attacks. So those are skills that are developed in general through gaming in a very safe way. But too often we miss that we can translate those back to our real world. And so that's ultimately where I want this book to go, is help gamers think about what are the skills that you have found yourself using in a game, what are the habits that you use in a game that you can start applying to work and see the same degree of success in work, in school, in your life as you do when you play your games. So I didn't really answer your question at all. I made it my own, but there it is.
Oh, that's beautiful. Dude, that's the jacket right there. That's it.
That's a long jacket.
No, hey, you got the front one and then the back one. I think that'd be perfect. No, for real. I mean, yeah, that completely sums up what reading through this. What I hope other people could benefit through it. I think. Well, I'll answer my own question for you then. How's that sound?
Go for it.
You talk a lot about Street Fighter, the benefits of playing fighting games, and how you can apply them to other areas of your life. And I couldn't agree more, because I think fighting games, you have a lot of things in your book about kind of the gamification stuff and achievements and progress and making progress. Now, video games make that all tangible. You always have something you shoot for. The thing I like most about fighting games, and I've tried to stress to people over my tournament career, is not worry as much. I mean, you're always striving, you're always trying to get better. There's kind of no ceiling. You can always keep improving, and it's just really important to not get hung up on, oh man, I don't want to lose. There's so many people who, when they meet someone a lot better than them, either if they lose, it's I lost because of he uses bull crap, or he's cheap, or he's not really that good, and then they stop. If people get succeed at fighting games, they say, oh wow, this person is up here, wow, you said, how did you do that? I want to learn how to improve. I want to learn how to get better, and not only the people that I met through that scene, but just that mentality of oh, this was good when I achieved something, but to never stop. And if you really want to be great at something, you just can't let up. And I think anyone who plays fighting games, I hope that they have a similar takeaway, and I hope they can relate to your experiences and everything you talk about in the book, and how they can apply that to their everyday lives.
No, I think that's great, and that really connects with me. The idea of persistence, or as the academic world labels it, grit. This idea of not giving up, but trying new things and new approaches, and saying, not wondering, well, why do I suck, but wondering, what can I do? How can I take this into my own hands? How can I improve? How can I get better? And too often, it's a shame to see that we can practice this in our games, and then we show up at work and we allow ourselves to feel defeated much quicker. And we start falling back into that fear mentality of, well, who am I? Well, no, I don't ask that in the game. I get out there and I try again. So you can do it. The other thing, again, I don't want to go off the edge deep, but this is an issue that's important. I want to talk about rage quitting for a second. Rage quitting in a game is when you just have fallen so far behind, or you had such a terrible experience that you forcibly disconnect, and it cheats the other player out of the win. It cheats them out of points or experience or whatever that is. But what I want to where I want to go with this is a bit deeper. If you're experiencing, not you, Chris, but if anyone is experiencing those sort of moments in life where it's work, it's school, it's personal relationships, and you feel like rage quitting, don't. It's really easy to want to give in and to give up on things like this, but that doesn't help you, and it doesn't help the people around you. And so, I mean, I'm speaking in metaphors, I'm speaking a little cloaked here, but if this connects with someone, it's an important lesson to know that you got to stick with it, you got to keep trying, no matter how hard things get. You never want to pull the plug or go that direction with it. So I think that's another way that games can teach us, you know what? We get up, we dust ourselves off, we try again, we'll give it another go. So same goes with life. Keep it up.
Yeah. You have a great quote that I actually wrote down here. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't write down who that quote was attributed to. Do you happen to know off the top of your head?
That is, yeah, that's Angela Lee Duckworth. She's actually a professor, and she did a TED Talk on the subject of what made individuals successful. What was the attribute that was common amongst the most successful individuals out there? And what they found in common in all cases was this high degree of being willing to stick with it no matter the challenges. Because that's, well, I mean, think about the real world. We build trophies, we build statues, we build monuments. History remembers the people that overcame. In games, we reward through achievements, through trophies, people who overcome. So whatever it is you're facing, no matter how tough it is, there's extreme value in overcoming. If it's hard, there's a good chance it might be worth sticking with and keep doing. So that's where grit takes us. Grit's that connecting factor, saying I can do this. I'm going to stick with it. I'm not giving up.
Excellent. Cool, dude. Man, there's so many things that I wanted to ask you about. Maybe we could do another one of these.
Yeah, I definitely would be up for that. As you see, if you look at the table of contents, you get a sense for where I go with this. I talk about everything from strategic planning and critical thinking to adaptability, dealing with change. One thing I didn't touch on as much as I wish I would like to, and I definitely will touch on in the future, is how having a personal routine for yourself can lead you to be successful. Time management, persistence, these are all things that I talk about at length, and I think are all very important.
Yeah, I wish this book would have come out like 2 years ago, and I would have read it. I read it back then? Because I'm like not very disciplined when it comes to like my personal routine, and I think a lot of like your businessy advice put into the context of games would have helped me get a faster start when I decided to quit my desk job and try this thing out. But now I've got it now, so I'm very happy.
Well, that's great. And the one thing I want to say for anyone who might have a similar thought is actually I could not have written this book 2 years ago. The experiences that I've had over the past 2 years and the path that I've gone down, it's very much been a work in progress. In this book I've had a chance, and I don't say this to brag, I say this to tell others what they can achieve if they put their mind to it. I had a chance to do an interview with David Hayter, voice of Solid Snake. I never in a million years, if you told me 2 years ago that I would be able to have a one-on-one recorded video call where I get to ask him anything I want, I never would have believed it. But here I am, and I even managed to sneak a quote or two from that into the book.
Awesome. Well,
so if you have things that you would love to do, get started. You have no idea what you're capable of until you get out there and start doing it.
Yeah, awesome, dude. And yeah, not only did I love the content that you have, I love that you're like super well spoken. I can tell that you're used to presenting your thoughts in a more organized way than I am. to like groups of people and stuff. Yeah, excellent stuff, dude. Where can we? Oh, I have two questions, two final questions.
Please, yes.
Is there like any way that people could like preview your book or any opportunities like that for them?
Yeah, absolutely. The first 30 pages of the book are available for free online this very second. So if you go to the book's webpage, it's allegamy.com, ALLEGAMY.com. You can go right to the book's page, and if you scroll to the bottom, there's a chance to get signed up for the mail list. I think I've sent one email out over the course of an entire year, and so I'm not going to spam you. But you also get immediate access to the first 30 pages of the book that you can take a look at. And yeah, that would probably be a good place to find it. I think I've posted some excerpts all across the internet, a couple of different sites, but I also have that on my own as well, which is classicallytrained.net.
Cool, excellent. Yeah, and like I said, man, it's there's so many great quotes in here. There's like tons of zero wing quotes. There's a whole section on like the whole all your base are belong to us, and yeah, not only is it interesting, but yeah, it's just really fun how you package everything together. I think anyone who plays games is really gonna like it. And so, as of this date, it is March 1st, 2015, and I believe soon we'll be able to order online.
Yeah, the goal is for this to be in Amazon for purchase on paperback or ebook by the end of March 2015, and there should be an audiobook not far behind that. So I'm not going to commit to an exact time on that, but that'll be available in short order as well, also through Amazon, which is going to be the place to go to get that.
Is it read by David Hayter?
No. Unfortunately, you're probably going to have to listen to me drone on for 8 hours.
No, you. That's part I wanted to say that because you have a really great speaking voice. You got like a great cadence, and yeah, just like I said, I can tell you got experience with this stuff before you started writing and stuff. So yeah, I was like extra impressed. Just hanging out and just talking with you.
Yeah, well, thanks. It kind of goes back to where we started with the whole strings finder. Find what you're good at. Become better at that. The stuff you're bad at, don't let others know about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's min-maxing. Like you said, you can relate that to fighting games, everything.
Yep.
Yeah, super awesome, dude. Well, yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for coming on to the show that doesn't have a name yet.
Yeah, Chris, it's absolutely my pleasure. I'm honored to be here, and I really enjoyed your thoughtful questions and giving me a chance just to share some of this content. I hope it can definitely make a difference for others as well.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. And yeah, we met. John and I, we just met through Twitter, just talking about like hashtag retro gaming is like the most powerful hashtag in like the world right now. I mean, that bot just picks everything up. So got us in contact. I'm a huge fan of Twitter. I've connected with so many people personally through gaming and also professionally just from Twitter, getting people's thoughts on there. You guys can hit me up. It's at Games Done Legit. Games Done Legit being the name of the company. My name's Chris. I am the owner / final boss. The title I made for myself. Games Done Legit. And John, your hashtag is at?
It's at CT_blog. It's a classically trained, so CT_blog. And interestingly enough, I don't know if you noticed this, on LinkedIn I'm also listed as final boss at classically trained. So
no way.
We share a title.
Brothers, we're like Billy and Jimmy, man.
There you go. Red or blue?
I always liked Jimmy. I always picked. Okay. And we need. Oh man, yeah. There's so many. We'll have to do this again after your book is out. I want to hear about that whole process. I want to hear like honestly the nuts and bolts of getting that going through that process. Maybe that's something we can do. Just through Twitter and stuff. I'll engage you out there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I find that just super fascinating. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about your success, and I'm more than happy to just spread the word as best I can. What a cool book you put together, and I hope people really get something out of it. I think they will.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you for the work that you're doing. I hope that someday soon I'll have a chance to experience one of your events as well. So,
Oh yeah, let's hope so, dude. Yeah. Where are you located again?
Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh damn. Okay.
Yeah, I know it's really rough. It was like 82 degrees here today and sunny.
Man, you're missing out, dude. You're not living until you see -11 Cleveland streets and blistering winds. You don't even know, man. It's great.
Yeah, I'm missing out.
Um, cool. Yeah, yeah. Let's do this again. This is a lot of fun and such a unique perspective on a video games fan relating to like life. Yeah, I've never had a conversation like this before about games, even though it's a lot of stuff that's kind of loosely bounced around in my head a little bit. You really solidified all these concepts. So awesome job, man.
Well, thanks. Get out there and have more conversations like that.
Cool. All right. Well, that's a wrap. You can hit us up on Twitter. Again, my name is Chris Hatala, owner and final boss of Games Unlegit at Games Unlegit. Hit me up on any social media platform. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel here. I want to be doing more interviews with people who are in unique positions, contributing to the gaming community at large. And please hit Jon up and wish him success as his book nears publication. And that's at CT_blog, website classicallytrained.net, and allegaming.com. Let's do it. All right, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.